I call the Tuesday, November 20th meeting of the St. Joseph County Board of Commissioners to order. Please stand for the pledge and remain standing for a brief prayer.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our Heavenly Father, we thank you for all our blessings, and we ask to continue your blessings on the tasks before us. Please bless us our efforts with clear insight and our decisions with impartiality. Please give us your guidance, wisdom, and support as we begin this meeting. Continue to remind us that we are here today for the pursuit of truth, for the greater glory of you, and for the service of humanity. We are also thankful for celebrating Thanksgiving, and we thank you for being with us in all our joys and sorrows. We thank you for friends, for health, and for grace. May we live this and every day thankful of all that has been given to us. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
All right, I will note we have a meeting change. The meeting originally scheduled for Tuesday, December 4th is now being moved to Tuesday, December 11th because the County Council meets a week earlier that month, so we need to make sure we've got enough time so we can act on anything that council acts on. So once again, we will not have our normal public meeting on December 4th. It will be moved to December 11th. All right.
Will there still be a claims meeting on the 4th?
There will be.
There will be a claims meeting on the 4th.
All right, moving on to reports. For our first order of business is opening reading of bids. I don't believe there are any, so we can move on to reports and requests. Board of Commissioners, first item is the accounts payable docket. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve?
Second.
We have a motion to second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Next item, Indiana Enterprise Center layman-to-layman agreement, addendum number 1. Mr. Bill.
Good morning, Bill Shalio, Economic Development, offices on the 11th floor. Before you today is a proposal for agreement addendum number 1 with Layman & Layman to continue providing services related to the Indiana Enterprise Center, specifically related to their services for master planning and land use plan development. The addendum is for $60,000, and this will supplement their prior contracts. The Redevelopment Commission approved this contract on October 9th. If there's any questions, I would be happy to answer them.
Now, Council, there were a couple things that need to get worked out. I assume that has taken place.
I thought this one was tabled just due to information that's coming back, Mr. Shallow.
Yes, that was,
Okay.
I don't think there was any contractual.
Gotcha.
language. This is just an amendment to an existing agreement to add some additional scope of services.
That's correct.
Any questions or comments? Commissioner Thomas.
Thank you. I've not been a big fan of all the development in New Carlisle, it's no secret. And I've certainly been questioning the large amount of expenditures that's been going on there on speculation. So this is addendum number 1 for $60,000 on top of the original contract for what, $100,000, right? So a 60% increase?
That would be correct, yes.
It seems pretty significant. I appreciate your report that you included. It showed the 7 firms, sometimes I've referred to them as the gang of 7, that have been getting all these contracts. And this is the second highlighted item, $60,000.
Yes.
Okay. I was wondering why the other 2 items that's on this report, $98,440,000, $107,900, why weren't those addendums brought before us?
They were actually back several months ago.
Okay. But they weren't considered numbers 1?
No,
This is
these
considered
are
numbers-
actually specific work scopes that were above the original contract.
Okay. And I do appreciate this report. I think it'd be even more accurate to show the cost of accounting services that's been paid out, the cost of legal services, any other administrative expenses that's gone along with this project. I do recall seeing in the news the other day that it was a Tribune article, that Intero Group received a $100,000 contract, $50,000 from the County Redevelopment Commission and $50,000 from the NICD board. Did you see that article in the paper?
I did, yes.
Okay. I don't recall the Board of Commissioners approving that interlocal agreement. Did we?
It actually just went through the redevelopment commission. It was a contract, was referred to legal to review how that needed to be funded. So it went through the redevelopment commission for their approval.
Okay. And then it go out for bid?
It did, actually.
Did it for bid?
Nick did had
Redevelopment
they actually had 7 vendors, and they narrowed it down to 1 and selected Antero. Nick did, so.
And is there any reason, what was the reason that didn't come before this board for final approval, like most contracts would? Did it revolve around fiber optic network? Which I
This has
think has
nothing to
been
do with
an
fiber
exclusion.
optics.
Okay.
No, I don't
So then
know.
why-
I would defer to legal for why.
Okay, Counselor, were you
We
advising
referred
on
the statute as far as entering into a interlocal agreement with NICD, and we just made the determination the redevelopment commission was the only agency that needed, or government body needed to act on its behalf here in St. Vincent County.
that? Okay, but that included an awarding of a contract of $50,000 of taxpayers' money, which it seems we would have voted on.
I don't think the county awarded the contract. NICD awarded the contract. We were just participating with NICD.
Okay. I think it would have been more transparent, cleaner if we would have approved the contract and the expenditure as we customarily do, and also would have approved the interlocal agreement as we customarily do. But thank you for this good report there.
Well, thank you. You had asked for it previously, and I wanted to make sure it was properly provided.
Thank you, and you could please add those updates as requested.
Certainly.
Thank you.
Any questions or comments? Is there a motion?
Motion to approve this Lehman and Lehman Agreement Addendum Number 1.
Second, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion passes 2-1. Next up, SF Motor Development Agreement.
So nearly a year ago, I believe it was almost on November 1st, October 31st, November 1st, SF Motors purchased the former AM General Commercial Division property on McKinley Avenue. Shortly thereafter, we began a series of conversations with SF Motors representatives. Those conversations have culminated in this development agreement before you today. We have been working on this for nearly a year. And so I'd like to walk through the development agreement very briefly, cover some of the points, and then if there's any questions, I would be happy to answer them. As part of this agreement, SF Motors will purchase the property at 12900 McKinley Highway. That has already been done. This will be purchased for the specific purpose of creating electric vehicles. The investment by the company is estimated, or is required to be $20 million. And must be complete by March 31st of 2019. As I will detail later, they have spent more than $20 million as part of their commitment. Employment. The company estimates it will employ full-time no less than 100 people by March 31st, 2019. At this point in time, they have employed only or nearly that amount of people. Wages. Wages are to be competitive within the automotive industry, and will be hourly basis, roughly at $26 an hour, as I understand the agreement. The employment of local contractors, they're required to use local contractors when commercially reasonable efforts can be made. And again, we'll detail that as part of the supplemental material. State incentives, SF Motors applied to the state for a variety of different incentives. All of those have been approved by the state of Indiana. From the county side, the county was asked to support a personal property tax abatement for 7 years on the $20 million of new investment. That was approved by the Common Council on October 9th of 2018. It is important to note that this property sits within the AM General Economic Development Area, and the Redevelopment Commission is the only party that will have any adverse impact by the granting of this tax abatement. The only party that will not collect increment will be the Redevelopment Commission during the period of this investment. There's a table here on the second page that shows the investment scale. Abatement compliance. The company will be required to meet all abatement compliance requirements set forth within the county ordinance. The county will support an industrial recovery tax credit or a dino tax credit. That again was granted by the state. Expansion support. When and if the company seeks to expand, the Redevelopment Commission owns property immediately adjacent to the EVAP facility. That property is currently on a year-to-year lease. has been on a year-to-year lease since 2001. The lease terms expire in 2051. The company pays a one-time payment once a year of nearly just over $71,000. That will continue. In the case that the company wants to expand, there is a provision in the lease agreement that would allow the company to buy all or part of that land. There's a provision in the agreement on utility support. If additional utilities need to be run to the site, the county would support those efforts. Support could mean either financially or by just being a participating party and bringing parties to the table. At this point in time, real property tax determination has been done with the Penn Township Assessor's Office. That has been done. That is now recorded in the property process, but we were supportive of that work. And again, at this point in time, no real property tax abatement is eligible because there's nothing for real property, real property tax abatement to be granted for the property. So there's no real property tax abatement that has been requested. There was an issue that came up during one of the many meetings that we had with the council, and I would turn to one of the supplemental pages. The council was interested in having an understanding of union versus non-union contractor work that was being done on the site. Presently, right now, 73% of the work done on the site has been done by union work. That's actually $20.4 million worth of work that's been done on site in total, and 73% of that, or 14.8 million, has been done by union laborers. And of the 61 total contracts issued, 82% or 50 contracts have been done by union workers. There are some, I can't say enough. We've been working on this project for a year. This company has been great to work with. We're excited about their investment in the property. We feel that this investment will help with investors looking at the property on the other side of the fence, as the military division has some opportunity for some repurposing or maybe potential acquisition. So we're excited about this. We see that our partnership with SF Motors will extend long into the future. We're excited about having our community placed into the marketplace with electric vehicles, and we think this is nothing but a win for the community. A year ago, we could have had, really should have had, 0 workers working on site on today. But because of their investment, we have people working on the site. We'll have hundreds of people working on the site. We've seen millions of dollars invested in the site to date, and we'll continue to see that. So this is a slam dunk project. The county's involvement in this project is pretty minimal in scope and for the return on investment. So I would ask for your support. If there's any questions, I would be happy to answer.
Well, first off, thank you and your staff for the great work that you did. I think this is truly a transformational project. When we can look back 5 and 10, even 20 years into the future, we'll look back at this time and see this is truly a very critical point in economic development here in St. Joseph County. So thank you so much for the work that you did with that. Any questions or comments?
I would be remiss real quick if I didn't also thank Jamie Woods and Steve Dalton. They spent an incredible amount of work on this, and Mike Triple also. But all three were just very instrumental in getting this work done.
Right.
I just say I'm excited about moving forward with this too. This is going to be nice in the area, and it's a good investment.
God bless you and your sneezing.
Oh,
Your
thank
cold
you. It was
gets
a
better.
cough, but yes.
And it's a very good report. You gave us one a few months ago, and you hit on some of those topics today, such as the hourly wage being roughly $26 an hour. And at that time, I asked, was that wage package including insurance and retirement benefits? And you said no, that was the actual gross wages as we understand it. We also discussed the word support. When we support utility expansion, when we support rail expansion, and you mentioned now there could be a financial cost, but and that it would probably be spelled out in the contract. When I went through it here, I couldn't find support really defined. So we aren't necessarily obligated to pay for all their rail. They can ask us and we can say no. Is that correct?
That's correct. The word is support. So we would support, but not required.
Sometimes support is defined as required.
Certainly.
Some little paragraph somewhere.
Yes.
Okay, and I think that's important, I think it was Saturday's paper on front page had a good article that said, when attracting development, don't sell your soul of your community. I think it was in reference to the Amazon chase that many communities went through. A few days ago on Channel 34, maybe a week ago or two, they actually had a show called What Happened to Dayton, Ohio. And they showed that a Chinese firm came in and bought the abandoned General Motors plant. And they were paying in auto industrial wages, which was basically minimum wage, the lowest they could pay. And the UAW and others complained, we can't afford to pay our mortgages and live off these low wages. And they said, well, it's more than we pay our workers in China. And that they were in the process of, Chinese firms in the process of buying 30 firms around the country at this point when they made the documentary. So, I'm very concerned when I see that happening elsewhere in America. I'm glad that there was some work trying to get a PLA, Project Labor Agreement. I commend the council for holding them to that and then at least checking into it, and that hopefully they will amend their abatement statutes to include that in the future, because certainly if we're sacrificing something from our community to help a business, they should have a strong commitment, not just wages, et cetera. The 7-year abatement always made me question, why a 7-year abatement? Because normally anybody who would qualify for 7 would certainly sort of qualify for 10, understanding the way the system works. But then I do understand from talking to you and others that they are receiving 10 years worth of credit in the 7-year period, basically. So, even though it's a 7-year abatement, they are getting 10 years worth of credit. But all in all, I hope this turns out to be a really good project. And is there a possibility, I know we own some land there, the Redevelopment Commission owns some land there. Is there a possibility where we would have to use eminent domain against people to take their land for an expansion?
As we sit here today, I can't answer that question. The land that we own is pretty substantial. The land that we own was purchased under the color of eminent domain in the past. Eminent domain was not used on any of the 52 parcels. So we cannot sit here and say what the future will hold. We can only hope that this company continues to grow and requires at least our land for future growth and development.
Thank you, and I hope so too. And I hope with this, any future negotiations in this project or any others, that we really negotiate, get the best bang we can for our citizens. That we don't just, they ask for all these cuts and discounts, and we just willingly give them to them. That we make sure that we are receiving bang for the buck to benefit our taxpayers and the increases on our infrastructure that large businesses might create. Thank you, Mr. Shaliam.
If there are other questions or comments, is there a motion?
Motion to approve the SF Motors Development Agreement.
I have questions. I have a lot of questions.
I don't know that you're going to get answers, but you can certainly ask.
So to
Ma'am,
that
would you
come,
state your name and address for
oh,
the
I'm
record,
sorry.
please?
Judith Rubleski, 515 South Meade Street in South Bend, Indiana.
Thank
Zip
you, ma'am.
code 46619. Thank you. This is, I've been thinking a lot about this agreement since Ted Booker's last Wednesday's article in the South Bend Tribune. And it brought up a whole stream of questions as I read through it. So regarding the wages, that's considered the average, is how Ted Booker put it in the article. So what is the wage range? As far as the abatement, this is, our county has a very poor record of following through on tax abatement promises and agreements. And so my question is, why don't we act like bankers? This is our county's land. And why don't we ask for a deposit of 2/7 of the $900,000, which is a near approximate figure of their tax abatement, which is a 10-year amount in 7 years. So why don't they put down a deposit, SF Motors put down a deposit of 2/7 of that to start with. So if they fail through on their agreement for the 100 jobs, provided these jobs provide enough living wage jobs. We don't know, don't want to go by an average figure. We want to know the breakdown of how many jobs will get so much at different levels of employment, different jobs. So am I clear? You have any questions?
If I may, I think that's a really good question, several good questions and comments.
Also,
ahead.
China doesn't have a very good, they're noted for contaminating their country, their air, their water, their land. And they have plenty of people that could use this job. So why do they want to come here? That's another question that a lot of people have. Why are they coming here? When they have all this land, they're a big country, they've taken over other countries to add to their country, so why are they now coming here? And then if they're leasing this from the Redevelopment Commission, or whoever owns, according to Ted Booker, it is a leased property. So we're the landlords, so how much are they paying for the lease?
We are not the landlords.
No.
Pardon me?
We do not own the property.
Who owns the property that they're on, that they're leasing from?
Judy, I think they own the building, and I think they're leasing the parking lot from the Redevelopment Commission. Is that correct, Mr. Chalio?
They already purchased land here.
Yeah, they own the building.
The
and
building, but
factory.
they own the building and the land that the building's on?
They own that land as well. They are leasing the parking lot. And Mr. Chalio is behind you nodding his head that I'm correct.
Okay, thank you. That wasn't clear in
Which I
the
tend to be
newspaper
correct.
article.
I tend to be correct.
Yes.
You know that.
Thank you. So, well, then there should be a lease arrangement payment to the Redevelopment Commission for that.
Yeah, I think it's about $71,000 a year.
Okay, that wasn't apparent in the article in the paper, so the details of the agreement are not.
I would comment on some of your questions you brought up so far. The wage range, I think that would be important to know. Just like earlier I mentioned, the word support should be better defined, you know? And, because wage range, you could have probably 100 people making minimum wage, and then someone else making several million, and I'm sure there's somewhere in there that you come up with $26 an hour. I don't know. I just have to hope for the best. Monitoring tax abatements, I think the county council has become much better at monitoring tax abatements
No.
than they were 10 years ago.
Anyway, so do you have any other comments?
No.
Okay,
Well,
thank you. You can
Well,
comment,
I have
but-
other comments, but
But-
time would not allow, I don't
Yep.
think.
Is there a 3-minute limit under these topics, or
There
only
is.
at the end?
I think the 3-minute limit only.
I would
applies
like to
the
see
end. You
this
guys
That's what I
have
agree.
tabled
questions
so
as
we
much
could go
as-
over the more
That was
detail
my-
and feel
so-
comfortable with this arrangement.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, if we don't care for our land, who is? Somebody in China?
Can-
Come
can I-
on.
Okay, thank you.
Let me,
All right.
please let me, wait there, please. So I think the council's done a way better job of monitoring tax abatements than they used to. If you go back 10, 12 years ago, there was not even any punitive, any monitoring going on. The abatements were rubber stamped 10 years to anybody, from my point of view. And then that's when they changed the abatement ordinance to make it, you have to be earned, and there's punitive damages if you don't properly earn them. So they've gotten better. The idea of making a deposit or a bond of 2/7, that's an interesting concept. The abatement, again, is run by the county council, the legislative body, and you're welcome to mention that to the legislative body, a bond of that nature, if you like. And again, I've heard rumor, I don't know if it's true or not, that they might want to hire a staff to help track these better. And yes, it is. China is well known for contaminating their environment. Sometimes this country, sadly, has exported our pollution and a form of slavery when we send jobs overseas where children are making 37 cents a day, or they'll pollute their country's environment instead of our environment. So there is a great deal of sadness all the way around when it comes to the environment and the way it's treated. We talked about the leasing of the parking lot. Is there anything else you want to say about this contract?
At this point, I don't know enough to make any more comments right
All right.
now.
Any other questions or
But I would like
comments?
this to be tabled so we could look at it and feel more comfortable with it. I appreciate all the work that's done on it, but this is not a comfortable situation at this point. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions or comments? Is there a motion?
Motion to approve it.
Second.
We have motion and second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. All right, next up, we have an appointment to the Historic Preservation Commission. I will now open up nominations.
Promote a nomination for Elizabeth Hertel.
I'll second that, but I have a question for Counselor.
Okay. So we have motions. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right.
Counselor, the request comes, and it states that she's the non-Democratic representative. Would it be more proper to say she's the Republican representative?
No, I think that that is probably a statutory term. I'm familiar with this term as it would relate to the appointment of magistrates here in St. Joseph County. It doesn't say one has to be an R and one has to be a D. It says non-Democratic or non-Republican. So I think that's probably a correct term from the statute. But I've not looked at that, but that phrasing doesn't surprise me.
That has typically been, they don't have to be one, they just can't be one.
Well,
So
then
you could be a Green Party
You
candidate.
could be an independent, or you could be non-identified.
So it might be more clear to say non-political?
No,
No.
they could be political, they're just not Democratic or not Republican.
Okay. It just seems odd to say non-Democratic.
Yeah. That's for the people downstate, Mr. Thomas, I think. So.
Okay. Thank you.
So are there any other nominations? Hearing none, I'll close nominations. All those in favor of appointing Elizabeth Hurdle to the Historic Preservation Commission, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Do you want
Any comments there?
to care to,
Sure.
since you're up there?
Yeah, it's already done though, correct?
Yes.
So I can say
You
anything.
can say whatever you want.
Thank you.
I'll
Just
start off by
don't-
saying,
just don't tell us she's a Democrat, otherwise then it all turns to, well, who knows what's going to happen then.
well, good morning, County Commissioners. It's
Good
very
morning.
nice to see you. I'm Elisha Fiesel. I'm the Administrator of the Historic Preservation Commission, and I'm here today with Elizabeth Hurdle, who, as you mentioned, has served on the Preservation Commission since 2014. She is the non-Democratic, but she is a Republican serving. But it is correct, the way that it's written in a statute, we have to have, okay. Without describing that, I'd like to tell you a little bit more about Elizabeth. Like I said, she has served since 2014 as the County Commissioner's non-Democratic appointee. She is a Mishawaka resident and is also a lieutenant paramedic firefighter with the South Bend Fire Department, which she has done for, I'm going to guess, 15 years. Also, while working full-time in that position, she received her degree in history and anthropology, so she's well-suited for that reason as well to serve on the Historic Preservation Commission. And she is also working to achieve her master's. In fact, she's one class away. So I'm very thankful that you've decided to reappoint Elizabeth Hurdle. She has been expired for about a year now, and I'd like to set up a plan where in the future when we have somebody who's expiring, we can automatically be on an agenda and answer any questions and facilitate these renewals sooner. But I appreciate your renewal here today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And as a current serving member of the board, you actually know how much work it is.
I do,
You still
yes.
want this?
I do.
Okay,
Yeah.
just checking.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your service.
All right, now moving on. Bills passed by the St. Joseph County Council at a public hearing held on November 13th, 2018. Council took the following action. Bill 7718 became Ordinance 5818, which is a salary amendment for the Maintenance Department. Bill 7818, Ordinance 5918, a salary amendment for the Auditor's Office. Bill 7618, Ordinance 6018, which is the monthly transfer and appropriations. And Bill 7518 became Ordinance 6218, which is a code book amendment regarding licensing and registration for the Adopt a Road and Spot Permit project. Any questions or comments regarding any of these items? Mr. Thomas?
Thank you. Mr. Murphy, I guess I'm going to ask you if that's all right. The first two items, County City Building raise for housekeeper, very minor raise. Minor adjustment for in 5918 as well. Have those adjustments been made in the 2019 budget? They have been. Excellent.
The first one has the increase in the
Housekeeper has been done?
Right. The second one is not,
It's overtime, so,
yeah, it's overtime spent
Okay.
this year.
okay. And then the 6018, there's nearly $279,000 increases in utilities for the courthouse, the jail, the county city building. You know, I'd hate to see that anything be understated for 2019. Do you think 2019 might be understated, or are these numbers in the 2019 budget as well?
These numbers are in the 2019 budget, but we'll have to monitor that for 2019 because the budget is lower than what the amended budget will be.
I'm sorry, repeat that?
We may have to amend,
For 2019?
right.
Okay.
But the performance services contract is being finished up this year, so that'll impact those facilities.
So if it's not 280,000,
So we may be able to monitor.
okay, thank you. Thank you. And then my last question might be for Ms. Clark. The ordinance 6018, Adopt-A-Block, the $50 fee, is that just to cover the cost of the sign? Super, thank you. And I'll acknowledge that Ms. Clark spoke in 7th floor and nodded in the affirmative. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Is there a motion?
Motion to approve these ordinances, 58-18, 59-18, 60-18, and 62-18.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. All right, now, we come to one of the things that we enjoy getting to do is recognize some of our county employees. So first, Catherine Chen began working for St. Joseph County in January 28, 1985. She served as secretary with the Adult Probation Department until March 13, 95, at which time she was appointed as a probation officer. Since then, she has worked as a probation officer and during her tenure has supervised thousands of cases ranging from low-level misdemeanors to high-level felonies. Her work has included monitoring defendants' compliance with court requirements and maintaining certification as a probation officer by completing all the continuing education requirements, all while working to effectuate change in the lives of those that she has supervised. Her tireless service to our community, the courts, and the county for more than 33 years should not go unnoticed as she is retiring from her position in November of 2018. Upon this occasion of retirement of Catherine Chen, we, the Board of Commissioners, are honored to present this key to the county in token of our gratitude for her 33 years of service to the citizens of St. Joseph County on this, the 20th day of November, 2018. If you want to come up and, this is the highest honor we can present any member or any citizen of St. Joseph County, and we very gladly present that today to Ms. Catherine.
Key to the county.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much. Here it is.
Congratulations. Oh, thank you. Best wishes to you.
And a real physical key.
Yes. We're not sure when it opens, but it's fantastic. If you'd like to say a couple words.
Do you have any comments?
Catherine, if you want to say a couple words, you don't have to. It's whatever. How fantastic your supervisor was, of course, will be.
Or not.
Well, I think with all the coworkers that I have here, it made it possible to be here this long, and I want to thank the county for this key. I think it's really a nice recognition of all employees who put in a lot of time here. So thanks, and I'll miss you all.
All right, Commissioner Fleming, you have our Employee of the Month.
We're so excited every year to recognize our employees of the month and highlight and update people that are really serving our community and our county. So this year, we have an employee's name is Sherry DeFries. She's since becoming an employee with Penn Township Assessor's Office. She has been an example for professionalism. This quarter, she has entered and researched over 1,500 appeals with zero backlog. As a result, we are anticipating all appeals to resolve prior to the tax bills being issued. This means tax savings to both the county and taxpayers alike. So again, we thank you very much. So here is your Employee of the Month. Hey, come on up. Thank you. There you are, my dear. No, thank you for all your work. Appreciate it so much.
And here is
Yes.
a little token of our and your name will also appear in the lobby on a plaque.
Very
Thank you so much.
Oh, here, I forgot to give you this. There you are.
Would you like to say a couple words? You're more than welcome to, or?
I just want to thank my boss, Mike, for nominating me, and thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, now we move on to the Hospital Authority of St. Joseph County resolution authorizing issuance of bonds. Mr. Facenda.
Commissioners, Phil Facenda from Barnes & Thornburg, 100 North Michigan Street, South Bend. The action of the county commissioners that's requested of the county commissioners this morning is to approve the action of the Hospital Authority of St. Joseph County from last week. The county commissioners are under the Internal Revenue Code. You are the authorized elected representative that is necessary for the issuance of tax-exempt bonds on the project. The project is, and I'm here on behalf of Beacon Health System. The project is a new 38,000 square foot hospital to be located on Beacon Parkway, and a corresponding approximately 50,000, it's actually going to be closer to 55 or 60,000 square foot office building that will be used for Beacon operations primarily and administrative operations. If you're familiar with Beacon, they have locations in South Bend, and they Memorial Hospital being primary, and Elkhart General in Elkhart County. This location is right in between the two, and that's why it's desirous for the corporation to be able to locate here. The hospital will be primarily emergency services. There will be 21 rooms, 11 of which will be for emergency room, and 10 of which would be inpatient. So it's not overly large, but it does serve their population and gives them a location in between. They are going to be consolidating some services, essentially relocating people to this facility from temporary space that they currently have. They are not therefore promising any new jobs, although with 80-some thousand square feet of new construction, they would anticipate there would be some, but they did not want to promise any new ones because they're relocating people in the two counties. It was a unanimous decision of the Hospital Authority to adopt the resolution, and it is a $40 million of bonds. And this financing would allow them to do so on a tax-exempt basis. There are no taxes or tax levy or credit of the county that's pledged to these bonds at all. This is very similar to what the commissioners might be familiar with, the pass-through financings that you're used to. This is very similar to that. Happy to answer any questions.
Might there be any questions?
I'm certainly glad this is going forward, that Beacon is making a stronger commitment to St. Joseph County. Just in a meeting a few weeks ago, I mentioned that, they used to have South Bend Memorial, South Bend St. Joe, Mishawaka St. Joe, Osteopathic in Jefferson Boulevard, and that way we had lost hospitals. And as a thriving community where better health care means more facilities, more options. So I'm happy to see this happen. If they, they're not asking for abatement or anything like that, so it's not my position to say, like you might have heard me to Mr. Shalio saying, hold their feet to the fire to get the best for our taxpayers, because this is a hospital, and they're already doing a great thing for our community. So thank you for presenting it.
Any other questions or comments? Is there a motion?
Motion to approve this hospital authority issuance of bonds.
Second.
Motion is second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Moving on to the Department of Health. Request approval of lease agreement with Enterprise.
Good morning. Amy Rupi, Finance Manager for the Department of Health with offices on the 8th and 9th floor of the County City Building. The Department of Health currently has 13 county vehicles for its field staff. The majority of those vehicles are upwards of 18 to 19 years old and have cost us a lot of money in repair over the most recent years. We have entered into a possible agreement with Enterprise, which it is the same program that the County Highway Department uses. to lease vehicles for 5 years and then get new vehicles after the 5 years. We would get 2 Ford F-150 trucks and 11 Nissan Versas for our field staff. We have included that in our 2019 budget by moving money around. We flatlined the budget to be able to do the lease in the future.
Questions, comments? Mr. Thomas?
Thank you. Ms. Rupi, I'm all in favor of the health department getting new vehicles. I'm not sure if the proper mechanics was followed. Usually when anybody gets bids, we have to approve them requesting bids. So I don't know if that happened. Am I against the enterprise bids? As long as it met the requirement of law, I'm not going to complain about that issue. But I am concerned that 11 of these vehicles are Nissan. Because we have a county ordinance passed by the legislative body, the county council, and the board of commissioners to buy American. Okay? So maybe you weren't aware of that. And you're new in this function. Nick would have probably done this traditionally.
Correct. He initiated this before his retirement.
Okay, so we have a county ordinance to buy American. So that way we're, again, supporting American workers and spending our taxpayer dollars to help other taxpayers in our country. We have such a beautiful country. That's why droves of people want to come here, you know. I did check with Nissan, and these would be new vehicles, right? 2019
Correct.
vehicles. Okay.
Correct.
And they're manufactured in Aguascalientes, pardon my pronunciation, Mexico, 300 miles northwest from Mexico City. So if I would defer to Counselor or even Ms. Clark if she approved of the bidding process regarding enterprise, but I cannot support violating the Buy American ordinance.
The Commissioner's office had no involvement with the bidding of these, so that would have been done by the Health Department. Ms. Clark, you didn't have involvement, did you? So,
Because she referenced the highway earlier.
I think she was referencing it's under the same program.
It's the same program that the Highway Department
Not a
is
purchase.
in its second year.
Yeah, but I think Jessica still went through steps, mechanical steps that you maybe didn't know about, because Nick would have probably done that. But maybe you didn't know about the Buy American ordinance. So,
Correct.
although I strongly want you guys to have vehicles, I cannot support buying Nissans made in a foreign country when our taxpayers here need jobs and deserve a decent wage.
Is that approved since it's a lease and not a purchase? Jamie?
I think it would apply equally to all acquisition of vehicles, whether lease or purchase, is my recollection of our Buy America ordinance. I think the more interesting part is what steps did the Health Department go through, if this was bid or did they get quotes, or how did these end up to us? So I think that.
Is this a state contract? No. Okay, because sometimes these are a state purchase agreement that would. Okay.
That should be.
So then, Counselor, what is your?
I think you should table this so you
Okay.
can get some further information from the Health Department, examine what bid issues took place, and then at the same point in time, review this in light of the Buy America provisions here.
Okay. All right. Might that motion exist?
Yeah, but before that, though, I'd also maybe recommend talking with Ms. Clark, getting some advice from her, as well as I think it's Major Dean Chandler. Is that who does it with the county PD?
I
Andy?
think it's fine to get advice from Ms. Clark, but Health Department has its own attorney that should be doing this.
Oh, I
stuff,
know,
so-
but I mean, just some advice on getting cars. I think it's Major Dean Chandler at county PD.
Is there a motion?
Motion to table?
Second.
Motion is second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. All right, Public Safety Communication Consortium. First item, request approval of Edge IT contract revision. Mr. Ray.
Good morning. Ray Schultz, Executive Director of PSAP 58266 Downey Avenue, requesting an addendum to our contract with Edge IT to increase the number of hours. We did an upgrade to our system on October 23rd, which has caused us to expend all of the hours that we had initially designed to do another project. So this would refill our hours so that project could be completed. This is an estimate. It's should not exceed this 150 hours for the rest of the year, based upon what the project that we have contracted for. So we would not have needed this addendum had we not had some pretty significant issues that arose from our upgrade.
Plus, you've also not refilled your your
Correct.
Right.
Yes,
your
we do
IT
have-
position, so part of this is that money is, that position could be doing some of this work had that you've been able to fill it, so.
Correct. I will say that during this time that this company has provided sometimes 2 and 3 technicians at a time to work through these stability issues, with our CAD vendors. So it's not just getting a person, it's
Sure.
getting several people
Yep.
at this time, so.
Questions or comments?
Thank you. As I certainly spoke to Mr. Schultz earlier, the cost it seems really high, because this is for a contract for $125 an hour at 150 hours to be completed by December 31st. That's basically almost $19,000 for the month of December. But under the circumstances that you are shorthanded in IT, I can support it. But I'd also recommend that I know you are working for a better long-term solution to this.
Yes, sir.
And as I recommended, Lau and Ariel are great IT vendors for the county. They might have a great IT person for you. But I support it as a temporary emergency need. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Is there a motion?
Motion to approve the request for the Edge IT contract revision.
Second.
Motion is second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Request approval of Lakeville Tower VHF contract.
So when the Lakeville Tower project was completed, there was an omission, and we have not been able to service the southern half of the county with the VHF paging capabilities they need. We had a initial quote of over $70,000 to do this, and it included some other system upgrades that were caused by some issues with proposed to maintenance. What we did was we decided to scale the project back, take the equipment off of the old tower, put it on the new tower. So that significantly reduced the price to this current contract. This is an essential service that we need to provide to our volunteer firefighters in the southern part of the county. This is how they get alerted at night when they're at work. And it should have been done earlier, kind of managing through this project and finding exactly what the sweet spot was financially was a challenge. So I think we've come to a pretty good agreement with Motorola to make that happen.
Questions or comments?
Commend Mr. Schultz for getting this here. Like he said, it probably should have happened earlier. It's a very important and vital key to the safety of the people in Union Township and down south. And I thank the Honorable Fire Chief for coming to help see and support it.
Any other questions or comments? Is there a motion?
Motion to approve the Lakeville Tower VHF contract with Motorola.
Second.
Motion is second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Finally, request approval of snow removal contract.
So we did need to do something different this year when it comes to snow removal at PSAP. We are on an island, that's really a function of maintenance, but it exceeds the capabilities of our current maintenance department. The way we change shifts every 4 hours, there needs to be more attention paid to removing the snow and salt. We did have several workman's comp claims last year for slip and fall injuries, which we hope to prevent. And it's out of the scope that we currently can provide. I've talked with County Highway, and they're willing to do things if we get like a lot of snow to help out in an emergency, but to come out every 4 hours and shovel and salt kind of strain their manpower as well. So we did solicit other companies too, and I apologize if I should have done a formal bid process, but we did solicit other companies on this time and material project, and this is the lone respondent to that. So it's a local person, lives close to PSAP, works for the fire department, is capable of handling this type of work.
And just from to that end, the maintenance portion was taken out of the budget, so this is the only recourse that you have versus hiring staff to do that.
Correct.
Any questions or comments?
I generally prefer things being done in-house, but I understand with the short staff and the critical needs. I appreciate you talking to the highway department and other vendors, even though maybe you didn't follow the proper bidding process. I'll let Counselor address that issue if he thinks it is an issue.
comment on that.
Okay, but so it is a critical need. So I can understand the urgency on this. Thank you.
I was gonna simply add that it's a service agreement.
Your name and address?
Peter J. Augustino, 151 South Taylor Street, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Since it's a service contract, it does not have to follow the bidding process.
Thank you, sir.
But I think, as Mr. Schultz indicated, he did make an attempt to find a better price.
And checked with the highway, which was a good thing to do.
Any other questions or comments? Is there a motion?
Motion to approve the snow removal contract with Jewel Property Maintenance.
Second.
Motion is second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, Ray.
Thank you.
Next up, Superior Court requests approval of Family Court Project Grant Application. Your Honor.
Good morning.
Good morning.
David Shaplow, St. Joseph Superior Court, 101 South Main Street. I'm here to ask your approval of a grant application I submitted to the Indiana Supreme Court. They have a family court grant project, and they distribute money throughout the state. I don't know whether we'll get it or not, but the reason for it is traditionally the Superior and Circuit Courts have done the divorce cases, and probate courts done the juvenile paternity cases. Judge Fox asked that we take over some of the caseload because he had an increase in the Chins cases, so we agreed to do that. And with the prosecutor, we took 40% of the prosecutor-initiated juvenile paternity cases starting in beginning of this year. And we've traditionally had a rule for divorcing parents to go through a class called the CADE and Transparenting classes. And these classes are self-funding. They are charged a fee. No county money is used to pay any employees or do anything for them. So I'm not anticipating that a new class for paternity parents will cost county money. But it's a different socioeconomic group. And the money charged to attend the CADE and Transparenting classes may not be available to those people going through the paternity classes. The emphasis is on early childhood development and working with JCAP and IGRA at Notre Dame. We're hoping to draw upon some of the programs at the Robinson Center. Excellent facility, well managed by good people there. And they have a program called Talk with Your Baby, and it ties into this target group of custodial parents with children from 0 to 5. And the research shows that they have so many neurons and so many synapses, and they lose it over time. They're like sponges, and if you can get them reading books, and we're going to tie into the Community Foundation where the Dolly Parton program gives a book a month to kids, and the Talk with Your Baby program, and other resources from the community. Christ Child, hopefully we'll have a representative. So that's the purpose of the class. That's the purpose of the grant application, to get some seed money in case we can't use a facility at Notre Dame for free. Will we have any money to pay rent? And I don't know how it's going to go. We're still planning this program. But that gives a brief summary of the grant application.
Any questions or comments?
I thank Your Honor for coming here, and you and your staff for watching for these grants and applying for them. Like you said, you don't know if you're going to be beneficial to receive them, but it's great that you're trying and thinking outside the box. And you mentioned, Robinson Center, some other Christ Child Society, others that work with the poor or other groups that need help. St. Vincent de Paul's a great organization. And I would just mention for you and your staff, our county Purdue Extension, they do like healthy cooking classes and some parenting classes that you might have your staff see how maybe they can synergize with any of the Purdue staff and their programs, which a lot of people think they're only 4-H and only country, outside the city limits. But they actually do try to do a lot within the city limits.
Well, we'll add
there's so
them to
much
the
need.
resource list of, and if anyone would want to come from Purdue Extension and attend and say a few words, we'd love that.
Yeah, they try to teach them how to cook within their, food stamp budget and how to eat healthier. Because so many times today, a person does not know what to do with a bag of flour or how to cook rice or noodles, and then they buy a bunch of unhealthy food for the children, and instead of the socialization process of the family cooking and eating and being together,
Okay,
Thank you.
I'll take
Thank
that.
you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Is there a motion?
Motion to approve the Family Court Project Grant application.
Second.
Motion is second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Your Honor. All right, next, the Department of Public Works. First item is the consent agenda. We'll note there's irrevocable standby letter of credit for Bradford Shores subdivision sections 1 through 4, irrevocable standby letter of credit Northbrook Shores subdivision, and a subdivision improvements performance bond for the villas at Cobblestone Square. Questions or comments regarding any of these items? Is there a motion?
Motion to approve this consent agenda?
Second.
Motion a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Next item, request approval of NDOT contract R36488, enhancement bike pedestrian facility, Adams Road, from Elm Road to Country Knolls Drive. Recommendation for acceptance.
Good morning, Jessica Clark, County Engineer with offices here in this building, room 732. Before you is a NDOT required form, which is the recommendation for acceptance to close the financial fiscal records on this particular federal aid project, which was our Adam Trail extension from Elm Road through Country Knolls Drive.
Any questions or comments?
Although I don't have any constituency in the Granger area, I still run into many people that just love this program. And they say, you guys, the county should do all it can to expand it throughout the county. You know, fortunately, the neighbors there got together and came up with their matching portion. And to have the citizens walk around and bike and talk to each other, it's just such a wonderful, healthy alternative.
It's certainly a community building project, but again, all credit goes to Friends of Granger Paths for their direction and willingness to fundraise the monies to be able to provide that 20% share.
Yeah, and a passionate commitment.
Any other questions or comments? Is there a motion?
Motion to approve the NDOT contract for this enhancement of the bike pedestrian facility on Adams Road from Elm Road to County Knolls Drive.
Second.
Motion a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Next, request approval of agreement for engineering services bridge number S605 over branch of Potato Creek on Redwood replacement.
This is a design preliminary engineering agreement to replace the structure on Redwood Road. The amount is not to exceed $117,900, and the services include the design work, hydraulic modeling, permits, documentation, plans, etc., to prepare the project for letting.
Questions or comments?
I'm glad to see this moving forward. Redwood is a very well-traveled artery for the southern part of the county, and that bridge is definitely in need of repair.
Any other questions or comments? Is there a motion?
Motion to approve this agreement for the engineering services.
Second.
Motion a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Next, request approval of agreement for engineering services bridge number S575 over Laskowski Ditch on Crumbstown Trail replacement.
Similarly, this again is a design agreement to replace this bridge structure in an amount not to exceed the $108,100. And again, the services include the hydraulic modeling, the designing, preparing the plans, permits, etc., to prepare it for letting and replacement.
Questions or comments? Is there a motion?
Motion to approve this agreement for engineering service with Laskowski Ditch on Crumbstown Trail.
Second.
Motion to second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Finally, request approval of architect engineering services for design, bid assistance, and construction. Phase 4-3 Highway Maintenance Garage Facilities Consultant Selection Award.
As you're aware, we solicited through RFP for these proposals. We received them June 26th. We did receive 4, one from American Structure Point, DLZ Indiana, Jones Petrie Rufinski, and RQAW Architects. We utilized a quality-based selection process, and our scoring team narrowed the 4 to 3 finalists that we then did interviewing on and considered the presentations they made for their proposals at those interviews. And at this time, we recommend DLZ as the most responsive proposer and would request the board's approval to authorize us to begin negotiations to establish a contract to look at scheduling and planning for the replacement and construction of 3 new garage facilities. Again, we have 6 existing satellite highway campuses right now. This process, the Board of Commissioners looked at where these facilities needed to be sited, I want to say toward the late 60s and in the 70s. And at that time, that was the decision and how they moved forward. And ironically enough, it actually was Cole Associates that did that study. And moving forward, who is now DLZ. Moving forward, we have looked at consolidating from those 6 sites to 3 sites within the county to better serve our community from an operational standpoint and an efficiency standpoint. We look to save nearly $400,000 to $500,000 a year in just utilities, equipment, and repairs on those highway garage sites. I mean, unfortunately, through the years, the maintenance funds had not been dedicated to keep them in a position to where they are fully usable today. The other aspect of that is there's existing challenges on those sites, and they're just merely physical constraints to where the needs of our community back in the later 60s to early 70s is significantly different than what those needs are today. And we feel and recommend that we can better serve those needs with that consolidation, better utilizing those funds, better utilizing the equipment, better utilizing our labor hours to serve the remainder of the community. And this contract will help us plan and schedule how to make that consolidation happen.
I think one of the keys is that we have known operational shortcomings, but more importantly, facility shortcomings. So sometimes in these financial times, people are wondering why we would spend money building new highway garages when we have existing ones. Well, the challenge is the money we would have to put into our existing garages to get them up to the level of service they need to be would be very close, if not more, than it would be to construct the new ones that would then give us operational advantages as well.
And unfortunately, logistically, the sites, they just don't provide the same service. The level of service we want to provide with consolidation to realize those savings, you just can't use the locations of where they are today.
So we're going to be spending these funds either upgrading what we have and improving what we have, or building new facilities that are more designed to the functions that we now need.
And this design horizon, I mean, we're looking to serve our community over the next 50 years. So these are sites that we're looking at our needs today, but what are we also going to have needs for in the next 50 years?
Any questions or comments? Mr. Thomas.
I've not been a fan of this project so far, and I'm not convinced yet. The populations haven't shifted so dramatically in the last few decades. There's still people in Wyatt and Lakeville and North Liberty and Walkerton, Leidig, New Carlisle, Roseland, Granger area. Earlier, I was happy to see we're going to have another hospital, and the logic that the more the merrier. So to go from 6 highway garages down to 3 highway garages, and that means crews and trucks are going to have to drive farther and spend more time commuting than actually at job sites, and other factors. I'm still not a fan of this. However, I am a fan of communication and negotiation, which isn't committing to the project, just communication and negotiation, which I'm a fan of. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
I'm just excited and moving forward with this too, so that we can improve our customer service throughout the county. So I think this is a great way, and update our garages, which are really not very good right now, so it's good.
There are no more questions or comments. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve this request of engineering services for the bid assessment with DLZ.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, old business, it appears as though there is none. Before we move to public comment, just a reminder that our meeting that was scheduled for December 4th at 10 o'clock in these chambers is now moved to December 11th at 10 o'clock in these chambers. Public comments.
But there still will be a December 4th claims meeting.
Right.
On the 7th floor?
Yes.
7th floor.
Any public comments? You've got 3 minutes to address the board. Please state your name and address.
My name is Marcy Kaufman, 106 Bray Street in New Carlisle. And I am here to just share some of my concerns regarding the IEC out on the prairie in New Carlisle. I met with Bill Shalio and Jessica Clark on July 5th of this year and shared these same concerns, and I just figured I probably should share them with you too. First of all, New Carlisle has an already stressed water treatment plant, and that's of great concern to all of we New Carlisle people. So additional industry coming in, that's a huge concern. The safeguarding of our aquifers is, of course, a huge concern for not just New Carlisle residents, but it should be for all county residents, regarding the draw and the potential for contamination. So that's something that we obviously need to thoroughly look into. The increase in TIF area in 2016, the county increased the TIF area, and how that affects, the additional tax monies from new growth and how it gets diverted from our school system, libraries, et cetera, huge concern. The sheer breadth of the IEC, it started out as a 22,000 acre plan. Now it seems to have, the focus is on 6,000 acres now. However, it still encompasses at least the 22,000 acres as far as planning goes, and it stretches as far north of New Carlisle as the toll road, and as far south of New Carlisle, cross Highway 2, clear down practically to the Kankakee. Just the sheer breadth of it is, I just think, industrial sprawl and the potential for industrial sprawl. One component is potential for redesignating / rerouting, I'm not sure exactly what it's called, of US 20 versus Business 20 through New Carlisle. Huge concern with GPS, Google Maps, etc. We don't want to divert people from coming to our town. So that's a huge concern. The compromise of just our rural nature of New Carlisle, just with the advent of the St. Joe Energy Plant, I am just surprised at how intrusive the new smokestack is, steam stack is, and
Got about 30 seconds, ma'am.
Thank you, the smokestacks. It changes the nature of us, and I'm against the new proposed exit from the toll road at Hamilton Trail. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any other public comments?
Just a question before you speak, Ms. You are the honorable elected Madam Kaufman from the town council, correct?
Yes, I am.
Thank you. For those that didn't know.
Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm Deborah Durrell, 21677 Mountain Road, South Bend. I'm here to talk about TIF and tax abatements. With regard to our industry, I recently attended a workshop on this topic, and I want to comment on several of the industries that have been getting tax abatements from us, and how that reflects on our fiscal cliff, and also all of the projects that the county is planning starting this next year. The SF Motors plan is a good plan in two ways. Number one, it takes advantage of existing industrial site, does not take over any additional residential or fertile land. Also, they are producing an energy-saving product. So that is a good looking forward kind of industry for this county that helps us use and conserve our resources. However, the product that they are making is not affordable, probably, to most of the residents here and probably most of the employees. That is something that we should put on our list to try to make sure that the products that they are making are applicable to the area where we are giving the abatement. Also, this is the first year in 9 years that the county did a checkup on the industries that have been getting tax abatements, and the checkup that they did was inadequate. It only covered 2 out of the many items on several of these industries, and in almost every case, the industries were severely negligent on their original agreement, on jobs and that kind of thing. However, I am not aware of any consequences that the county has taken on that. I'd like to read the definition of an economic revitalization area that was passed by the Indiana state.
You got 30 seconds, ma'am.
Economic revitalization area means an area which is within the corporate limits has become undesirable or impossible for development. And there's wiggle room at the end of that that says or other. It seems that the wiggle room at the end of these agreements, the ends of these codes and regulations, is the aspect that the county, in its financial crisis, looming fiscal cliff, is continuing to spend money. And I would like to recommend
Mr. Castelli, 3
that the
minutes has ended.
county tighten its belts. I'll be just one more sentence. That the county tighten its belts on these additional projects such as renovations and computer systems until they have addressed the missing money and jobs from these industries that got these millions in tax abatements.
Thank you. Any other public comments? 3 minutes to address the board.
Thank you. I'm again Judith Rubleski, 515 South Mead in South Bend, Indiana, 46619. Some comments on the IEC. Not only is there a concern about the possibility of toxicity and drawdown on the aquifers in the New Carlisle Prairie area, but also the recharge ability of those aquifers if the land is not is covered with concrete or buildings, so forth, parking lots. Okay, and I don't know if you all read the Associated Press article in the South Bend Tribune on October 21st on how big corporations that come into an area on the promise of jobs actually ends up creating more of a wealth divide. So, and it was also appeared in the U.S. News and World Report. And if you'd like a link to that, I can get that to you if you'd like to read that. It's based on census tract information done by professors of economics at Harvard and other universities. So, and it just came out last month. So there's that. And then as far as what happened in the past with corporations in China from the United States, China was not a democracy. I don't believe it is still. So, but here we're a democracy. We do things differently. We can speak up against how our land is used. And as we all know, corporations over the years have been being allowed to not have any accountability legally. And so, and now they're considered a person by our Supreme Court. So I think this idea of having a security deposit by corporations, of any corporation, especially an internationally based one from another country, to kind of hold it as a security deposit that they do abide by the tax abatement regulations, that agreement that they signed. We need that kind of security. Certainly, we have to start thinking like bankers, I think. So there's that. I think those are all my comments. Thank you very much. I can't imagine all the work you have to keep up with. I just can't, and I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments?
Dan Caruso, 305 Compton Street, New Carlisle, Indiana. My comments will be short and sweet. I make my comments based on what I hear at the meeting, and I too was at the workshop last Thursday with my friends from New Carlisle. My sole concern when I became involved with them several months ago was, don't poison my water. And I've heard so many different issues, particularly at that workshop we had last week, about the guarantees these companies get with the tax abatements, and then they showed us that they were expected to deliver a certain amount of jobs and basically hadn't followed up on it. Understanding that there's short staffing over here to have somebody monitor these things, whether you hire a staff to do that, or as this idea that Judy Rubleski came with today, the 2/7 deposit, basically guaranteeing that if you don't meet what you told us you're going to do with your company coming in here, with employment, with maintaining the property, not poisoning us, we've got 2/7 deposit, and we've got at least some money from you, where now they're, as we heard, there's nothing happening. These companies are getting off scot-free. There's nothing in a memorandum which can be written into the abatement agreement, as I understand, saying this is what you'll pay, this is what it'll cost you if you don't meet the obligations that you said you were going to do. Apparently there's ambiguous language. It says we may go back and review, or we could go back and review the terms, or we could fine you. I'm for get ambiguity completely out of there and say you will, and that 2/7 deposit would take ambiguity out of the equation. I really think, I'm coming up with so many different ideas. Again, water, don't poison my water was my main consideration. I've come up with so many considerations just in these past few months that I never even thought about the living wage issue, what you're going to do to the economy in the area, whether you're going to blow us up population-wise, where you're going to get your workers from. I think this whole thing needs to be slowed down and reviewed extensively before we allow anybody to come in there and just start having their way with us. Thank you.
Thank you. Just a reminder that from a tax abatement standpoint, these are all issues from a county council standpoint. They're the ones who oversee that, who administer that, and should be overseeing that stuff. So that would be the make sure to reach out to our fine friends on council to make sure that is being done properly. Any other public comments? Hearing none? Oh. Name and address for the record. You've got 3 minutes.
George Schaefer, Fire Chief of Lakeville Volunteer Fire Department, 117 South Main Street, Lakeville, Indiana. I have a question first and then comments. First, I'd like to know when we are going to see some taxpayer dollars spent in our streets in the southern part of the county. Our streets are falling apart at a very rapid rate at this point in time. Very, very little maintenance has been done over the years. We keep throwing patch after patch on top of patch beside patch. Some of our holes in our streets have not even been filled since last winter yet. The other issue comes up is safety for our firefighters. We run a volunteer service. They have to respond from their homes to get the equipment. In a process, this makes it unsafe for them to travel, trying to dodge holes, miss holes, or hit bumps in the roads, whatever. And then the apparatus responding, again, it takes a toll on our apparatus for repairs, maintenance, service, and the time needed to be able to get to those emergent situations. The other situation comes up when our ambulances respond. Again, slows their response down time to Mrs. Smith that needs the medical attention right away. Once they get them loaded in the vehicle, again, they cannot make an expeditious response to a hospital, to a medical facility, because the roads are getting so bad. So it's time we spend some money in the south part of the county and get our roads repaired, not just repaired, but upgraded. And grinding them up, throwing chip and seal or tar and gravel on them is not fixing a road. Pierce Road has been torn up 3 times in the last 4 years, and tar and gravel thrown on it called the road. I've talked to you, Commissioner Thomas, about that road. You said it's a temporary fix. Everything I've seen in the southern part of the county is not a temporary thing. We end up with it forever. Talking to some of the county engineers, they tell us, well, we don't get the amount of traffic out there that we do in the city, in the northern part of the county. That is true, but the traffic we get is very heavy. We get a lot of semi-traffic out on our county roads anymore. It is a great problem, but you can't tell our farmers they cannot run their semis up and down our roads. They have to move their commodities. That's what I mean about semi-traffic. Twice a year, there's very heavy equipment goes up and down those roads. Semis, heavy farm equipment. Sad to say we don't have our local mom and pop farms anymore. We have big commercial farm outlets going on, and there's many semis and many heavy pieces of equipment running up and down the roads. So I ask that a little bit of our tax dollars start to be put in the south part of this county to make it safer for all of our taxpayers. The other issue we look at too is tourism. Tourism is not just Notre Dame, it's not just South Bend, it's not just Mishawaka.
30 seconds, Chief.
Tourism involves the entire county. We used to have bicycle parades going up and down our roads, groups of bicyclists. Motorcyclists like to ride out in the county and view the scenery, enjoy the smells sometimes. We don't see those anymore, you know. We don't see those groups of people coming out anymore in our communities, which it impacts our small towns because they may stop in a small town, grab a drink, soda, lunch, dinner, whatever. But you don't see those people out in the road anymore. In fact, I ride a motorcycle. I don't even ride in this county. I head out of this county because I want better roads to ride. So I just ask that we look at spending some more money into our southern part of the county for some nice county roads. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir.
Oh, just to comment on a few things from our various citizens who are kind enough to comment. As Commissioner Castelny stated, and as I stated earlier in the meeting, the issue of a tax abatement is done by the county council. And they did review and renew a new policy approximately 8-10 years ago so that they added actual goals and you had to earn the abatement and that there's punishment for not meeting it, where before things were just rubber stamped. And that, as I understand, they are working on maybe hiring staff, part-time staff to monitor that even better. And the southern part of the county is part of the entire county. And when it comes to roads, we have way more roads than we have dollars. When you hear about a lot of these projects being done, some people say, well, everything's being done in Granger, everything's being done by Notre Dame. Well, things are going to be done where there is traffic flow and where we can expand our dollars. You know, generally when we spend money, if we can get an 80% match, which is 80%, that's almost the whole freaking bill. If we get an 80% match in the federal or state government, that job is, and there's high volume of traffic there, that project is going to take priority over anything else. There has been a lot of work done on Pierce Road. Some of that were special grants that the state government recently gave us. And quite often things are a work in progress. Sometimes that progress might be, you know, a couple months, a couple weeks, a couple months. It might be a couple years because chip and seal has to settle. The redevelopment commission, I think it was 2 years ago, we put money into the town park for that, where the barn is, to help buy those acreages to keep them natural. I can't remember the full name of the project. I'm sure you or Mr. Shalio would. Mr. Fleming's remembering. And that was to keep that pond and all that water, and I'm sure the environmental people would love to hear that for the benefit of New Carlisle, a significant amount of money was given by the county, but the redevelopment commission that had the money to give. The road money goes as far as it can go. Now, if you got potholes in the town limits of Lakeville, then that's the town's responsibility. To my knowledge, we have not accepted responsibility for the old 31. As to best my knowledge, that's still controlled by this federal and state government. It seems we're in perpetual negotiations on that. But as much is done, and a lot is done with the funds we have. I know when I receive a complaint, I contact Jessica, Chip, or somebody from the highway department, either verbally or telephone or text or fax, and it seems everything is addressed as well as possible. Sometimes it's not always the answer that question the taxpayer's desire, but they are addressed. Tourism, I agree. In fact, in one of my notes on my phone is, the change in Lakeville because of the new 31. Cars are not stopping there as they used to. That's why I've been supportive when the town has been trying to work with Potato Creek to have a bike path there. And I believe Mr. Shalio has been working with the town council of Lakeville for several years to that effect. But at the same time, North Liberty, on the other side of Potato Creek Park, they have that same goal and desire. So there are people thinking outside the box. Obviously, people from South Bend ain't going to think about Lakeville. I think one of the great assets you have is the Joshua Tree Store. And I think you got to promote more of the dinosaur bones and the wonderful things that are available at that location. So there's a lot going for Lakeville, and there's a lot good going on. And I'm glad we're getting the repeater fixed. I'm sorry it took this long to happen.
Any other public comments?
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Seeing none, motion to recess is in order.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Tough luck. We are recessed.
Counselor?